So if you're just joining us,
we're embarking on an interesting topic.
We're in the middle of a conversation with Jeff Thompson, Beth Guston, Robin Ennis.
Oh yeah, Wellness Wednesday with Beth and Robin. Gonna settle it down. Oh yeah, get your feet planted on the ground. Wellness Wednesday.
It is, and I think there is an adjustment period because we fight that initially. It's not going to be the same as what you're used to.
Wow, I haven't been able to see my husband age in the past so many years. I haven't been able to see myself age.
And I just sat there going, huh, and I let it go.
Adjusting to the challenges of aging, we're just not as resilient as we don't feel as resilient as we did
Right.
when we were younger, I think. I think we are just as resilient. It's just things are harder now.
That is true. Just the shift of what we were versus what we are now. I think that causes finality, about that they're not the age or, the ability that they once were.
I think some people will hang on to it. I don't know how many years it takes for people to, like there was a person talking about going on vacations. They won't be the same because you can't see this, you can't see that. Well, sometimes I think vacations you're away from the stuff that keeps reminding you of things you have to do. Like at your own house, like when you're in a hotel room, there's no pile of mail that you have to go through. There's no clothes to put away. In a sense, stuff like that. You don't have to clean the bathroom. Someone's going to do that for you in the morning.
Right, that's true. But it's also a reminder of what you don't have too. Like for me, when I love traveling and going on vacation, but let's say if I go on a tour bus and the tour person says, yeah, if you look over to your left or if you look here, then I'm like, And then also too, a lot of the tour sites, it says do not touch. Well, my hands are my eyes. So that makes it hard too if there's not audio description. So I get how vacation can cause people to, the change or the transition can be more highlighted or more pronounced.
I hear that a lot as well with like grandchildren and their sports games, or whatever activities they're involved in. As a grandparent, you can't see them on the field. You don't know that was your grandchild that just made the goal or whatever. And I think the same is true. I hear a lot with watching sports on TV. Yes, there's a radio for that. And it's a very different way of taking in information. And so it's a really hard adjustment, I think, to figure out new ways to enjoy loved activities.
Well, I think if you go to a museum and they give a tour guide or they have headphones that you can do, I mean, it gets to a point where you should look into this stuff and go on a bus tour where they do have that person describing everything. I went to Chicago and they have these boat tours where you can tour the canals and river, I guess. I don't know if I think it's man-made, so I call it a canal. But they talk about the architecture, when these buildings were built and what this was and blah, blah, blah. They keep on. But at the end of it, I got just as much as everybody else. Even though I didn't see everything, I got all the information. So sometimes it helps if you inquire. Like if you go to Gettysburg, there's sometimes a guide that brings you around, a group of people, and they talk about the history and they talk about it. But if you take a horse out to Mount Rushmore and stand there for 20 minutes and walk away, I mean, it doesn't mean much to me. But if you're with someone that has a full description of it, or inside you can get a souvenir shape of it, something.
True. I hear both of y'all saying it, and Beth, you've said it perfectly. It's just a new way of taking in information.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and I think there is an adjustment period because we fight that initially. It's not going to be the same as what you're used to. It's not going to give you the information in the same way. And so I think there's some resistance that many people often experience of not wanting to try something new because it is so different. And then usually once they do, yeah, it's different, but you still enjoy the experience and you've learned that, okay, I still can enjoy museums, or okay, I still can enjoy, sports. I think it's really hard, at least I have not found a good solution for watching like grandchildren play a sports game in real time. That one is harder unless you've got somebody who can narrate really well in real time. I think that one's harder just because it isn't the same and there isn't a really easy or good way to get that same information.
I think too that you have that time period where at first you're just going to keep confirming that this sucks.
Yep.
You're going to
Mm-hmm.
confirm, yep, I knew it would suck and it does suck,
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, you're going to find, like you said, Beth, a different way
Mm-hmm.
of experience, of the experience. It may not be gawking at the Eiffel Tower, or gawking at Mount Rushmore, or studying the vast array of the Grand Canyon and the depths and everything like that. But it might be something new that you'll experience that, I think a vacation too is, yeah, it's well, you said it, Robin, it's not a sightseeing, it's a touch and feel tour.
Mm-hmm.
But I think until you accept the inevitable, that you won't see it again, but you'll find the company that you're with or that you keep when you go on vacations, and the experience of planning ahead. Like, are there tour guides? Are there audio description in the museum? Is there a tour of the stage at certain cinemas or something like that? Theaters, I guess. So I think it's just learning what is out there, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know if there's a audio, until you look into all this stuff. And I think after a while you want to start planning your vacations so you can get the best out of it, the most out of it that you can.
Yep. And so, and when I hear you, Jeff, and it goes, what we've already said, it really is a multi-layer step. It comes to accepting it, because that's what prevents people from asking for whether there's audio tours or what accommodations, because it makes it even more real, that transition. So I have to really start where my clients are in the moment and gauge whether they're ready or not. Some will say, yeah, no, it's not going to be the same. I'm not ready to do that. I don't think it's going to be advantageous for me. And so eventually they come around and they decide to try it, but it's really an individual decision, and they have to be, ready to take that step, because it really is a shift in identity when you come to terms with it and officially realize, hey, I do want to look into accommodations, or I do need this type of assistive technology. But I still enjoy travel, and I enjoy tours and things like that. And so, yeah, I do agree. It's always good to look ahead if you're able to. Sometimes you're in the moment. Like my family and I went to Savannah, Georgia last November, and it was in the spur of the moment where we decided to do a haunted tour. So that in that moment I couldn't ask, but it worked out. It was good.
I think too, there's different ways to enjoy a destination. So maybe you can't see the architecture, but you can still enjoy the food or the culture or the music,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you're going. And so I think it's also being open to experience things, a different way. Be open to finding new ways to enjoy the same thing. I understand there are some hobbies that do not work well when our site decides to leave. Some things you can't adapt. I'm thinking like after a while, painting can become really, really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I think photography, depending on your level of vision, can become really challenging. I've had clients who've gone from like, yeah, I paint landscapes and flowers to now I paint abstract to now I don't know what I'm painting, but I still enjoy the feel of the brush on canvas. And I can see the colors. So, I know what blends well. I can see the colors in my mind. And there are
Yeah.
some people who it's really hard to find something else that fills that void when they do have to stop doing that beloved hobby. And
And
so,
sorry.
nope, go ahead.
No, because it sparked me because when you mentioned photography, because and that's one thing too, because I have one of my clients who is in his mid 70s and he loved photography, and I'm trying to get him to get back into it, but I keep reiterating it's not going to be the same. But they have had a lot of adaptations, and there are a lot of blind photographers out there in terms of the way to adapt things. And it takes a lot of courage, and also too have to have a lot of patience with yourself if you are trying a hobby that you once loved, or as one of my clients said that he was a perfectionist at, to be open to trying something different, because I don't think that you have nobody's perfect, right? And so especially when you're trying something new. So that's what I keep telling them. So you have to be patient with yourself when trying something new that you beloved.
I think that's the one nice thing with all the technological advances that we do have now. There are usually ways to adapt just about anything if you have enough patience and energy and desire to learn.
Yep.
There's a lot of how-to videos to watch. There's a lot of email listservs and social media groups dedicated to, blind cooking, blind gardening, blind photography, blind musicians.
Blind
And I use the word
woodworking.
blind woodworking.
Ooh.
There's usually a way.
Yes.
And so being open to maybe relearning something you're really good at.
The fear really comes into it, and so you have to talk yourself out of fear. And I bring up blind woodworking stuff because there's clients on my caseload who are like, yeah, like I couldn't do woodworking or things like that. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Because, actually you can.
Yeah. If anyone's interested in woodworking for the blind, that's www4b.org. There's a bunch of woodworkers on there that are always asking each other questions, helping each other out, giving tips and tricks and listening and advice. And yeah.
I love the fact it's like your own website for that too. I assume there's other groups like that too, but I'm like, that's cool. It's got its own home on the internet just for
That
that.
is cool. Can you repeat that, Jeff?
Yeah. So www4b.org, that's woodworking for the blind. And yeah, it's really a good group because a lot of them like when beginners come on, because beginners, you don't know where to start and stuff. And there's always, every 4 months or something, there's a whole new topic of where to start with your wood shop. How much space do you have? And what do you want to do? And all that stuff. And no one says, oh, no, not this again. Everyone's so helpful at that. So it's a good place. And ACB has so many different groups that you can join in on, whether, like you mentioned, cooking and all these other topics and stuff like that, that there's groups of people out there, that are sharing the same desires that you have, and together they can form a community, and it's a good place to check out and see what's up.
Once again, that's www4b.org.
Perfect. One thing though,
Sorry.
no, so one thing that comes up that cannot be adapted, unfortunately, is for me with my clients is driving. And
Yes.
so they'll say, but I've been driving for decades. I'm in my 60s or I'm in my 70s, and now I have to have this major transition. And a few of my clients, within the past 5 or so months, 2 of my clients had to surrender their license. And again, they're in their 60s and 70s, and so that's a big one. So it's like, okay, yep, I get it, right? Sitting in it, and that is a big part of independence. Driving for some can be a hobby. Like one of my clients likes the thrill and adventure of fast cars. And so with this new transition, it's like, okay, so it's different, but how can I still enjoy cars, right? Instead of driving, it's riding in the car.
And I think that involves giving up so much. I use the word control.
It is.
Because it takes a lot of courage to trust someone else to drive.
That's true.
And be a passenger in that car, especially when you've been the one driving for decades. It's really hard to make that transition. It's doable and people do it, and it sucks.
Yeah, that is true. Trust is a big one.
Yeah, it's just like a carnival ride. When you get on those things, you trust that it's going to go up and down all around and bring you back, right? Yeah. The thing about me when I gave up my license was that I didn't want to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that guy that plows into another car because I didn't see it and have that situation happen.
Yeah.
So you got to be ready for it.
You do have to get ready for it. I only drove for 3 years, 4 years if you include my permit. But so it wasn't a big shift for me to surrender my license. It was still hard, but I also too wasn't the greatest driver, so that was not a big loss for me.
I think it just comes down to accepting it. And I remember when I first lost my eyesight, a major part of it, and after 6 months, and I think I've said this before, I went to a training center and saw these people thriving and doing things and active. And it's like, wow, I want that.
Yep. Yep.
If you're going to keep looking at the negative and going back, maybe you need to do that for a while. But at some point, you're going to find that there's people out there doing things and you want to do stuff like that too. So hopefully you find a little bit of community or somewhere along the line you can start to enjoy things, like we've said, in a different way. Just like all our technology, it's a different way of accessing books, audio description, TV, and stuff like that. Same with everything else in life. It's just different.
Yeah, it is. So first of all, again, it goes back to grief. So you're going to have ups and downs, and there are going to be things that pop up, because another thing that comes that we can't control is people. And I've had multiple people say this on my caseload who are older, but I've also thought this myself, and I'm getting older too, is wow, I haven't been able to see my husband age in the past so many years. I haven't been able to see myself age. What do they look like now versus when I remember them? And I think about that because I regularly will ask my family, I'm like, so what do I look like? Because the last time I saw myself, I was an 18-year-old, and now in a few days, I'm about to be a 43-year-old. So that's quite the age gap.
You look about 19.
Well, my brother, okay, I'm not going to derail a whole lot, but my brother-in-law had a big laugh because a month ago, I went to a car wash with my sister and brother-in-law. And staff person, my brother-in-law went to go get my sister and I water. And he came back and he was laughing. He was like, yeah, so the person in there asked me if I was bringing this water to my mother. And I'm like, and talking about me, and I'm like, your mother? And my brother-in-law is 12 years older than me. So I'm like, okay, that's lovely. But again, our mind just goes to that place. And I actually in the beginning of this month, July, I had my 25-year high school reunion, and it was the first time that we all got together. We didn't have a 10-year one or anything like that. And in my mind, as I was talking to these people, right, and their voices changed, obviously, and I'm like, I don't know any of these people, right? And so but in my mind, they still look like the teenagers. So it was an interesting moment for me. So I do get, again, that other aspect is that we don't have control over not being able to see, people change, and that's just a part of loss that we have to cope with. Beth, do you get that?
Yeah, I do. I think overall change is hard for all of us. But what I was thinking about, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I was thinking about the 5 stages of change, which I think we talked about on here a long time ago. But we have the pre-contemplation, the contemplation, the preparation, the action, and the maintenance. And
wait, say that again.
A lot of us
say that again, slower.
Preparation. Pre-contemplation. Contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance. And so I use the example of using a white cane just because I think it fits. But so I'm going off on a tangent again. But with the white cane, we have pre-contemplation. I don't need that. I'm not there yet. I'm fine. We have contemplation. Yeah, I probably would benefit. I could see how it would help me. I'm not going to do it yet. We have preparation. Okay, yep. I'm looking into getting some cane training and looking into where to get a cane and what kind of tip I'm going to want, things like that. Then we have action. You've actually had some cane training and you're learning how to use it. And you've got maintenance. You're using your cane every day and you're discovering that it really is helpful. And because these stages were built off of motivational interviewing and change in general, and for those like with addictions, we often tend to have relapse where we would give up the cane in this case and decide that it is, we don't need it, it's not helpful. And then you start back over again. I don't see relapse with my clients as much. I think usually when we stick with the change we've made, we stay with it because it does help.
Just the other day, there was something funny on the news. They were showing a video that someone submitted, and they all started laughing. And I was thinking, if I would have got up and went right up next to the TV, I could have interpreted that. I could rewind it. And I just sat there going, huh. And I let it go. And I'm thinking that there's so many things in my day, like when I'm out and about with other people, that I don't get. I don't get that information, and unless someone interprets it or something.
Right.
But it doesn't bother me. And I guess that in a sense, even in the public sphere, we can be secluded more so we're in our mind. And unless we decipher a sound that we can recognize and, paint our own picture in our mind, what's going on, I'm sure it looks a lot different than what is really happening, but it's satisfying, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Or we choose to ask someone to, let us in on the joke. Why is everyone laughing? If there's someone around to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we do miss a lot of cues. I wasn't going to tell this story, but I guess I'll tell the story. I was at a party a while back and someone came out and said, I like your shorts. Those look really comfortable. And I was unaware that she wasn't talking to me because I wasn't sure who else was around with me. So I said, thank you. And so the other person that the comment was meant towards. And they're like, well, I like your shorts too, Beth. I'm like, no, you don't. My shorts are wrinkled and ancient, and I'm just wearing them because they're comfortable. There's nothing special about them. But it was really embarrassing for me in that moment. And I could have stayed silent and waited to see if it was me they were talking to. But that experience reminded me in public, I think sometimes we try to interpret and we misinterpret. And I think that can make it really hard to go back out in public again. If we have a lot of those experiences, which we do early on for many of us as we're transitioning and trying to adjust, depending on how good we are at handling embarrassment, it can be really hard to get back out there and continue trying to adjust and regain our independence and whatnot.
That is true.
It's just like reading a book. Sometimes you read a book and you get this interpretation in your mind because you're just listening to the book and stuff. And that's how it is out in public sometimes. You're in an Uber and you hear a screech of a car and you're just waiting for that jolt or moment, and it passes. Then you hear other things, or you're outside and you hear this stuff. It's just like a book. You get, it's different than, turning your head and observing something happening, I think after a while you get content with the situations you put yourself into, and you tolerate the nuances, I guess, of not being able to do it the way, if you've had sight before, that you used to be able to do it. But what's your choices? So I think getting out there and experimenting and finding out what interpretations, I get off on some of them. It's like, I know that's not what happened, but I imagine this happened, and it's all right.
And both of those are very real moments that you both talk about. And so whenever I still get embarrassed, and I've been blind. This summer marks 24 years. So I've been blind longer than I've been sighted. So I do still get embarrassed, but I also too will kind of shrug it off too better. So my favorite phrase is, oh, just kidding. If I find like somebody's not talking to me, I just like, oh, just kidding. Or if I find that somebody walked off and I'm talking to myself, oh, just kidding. Never mind. So I have gotten better in that way, where you just kind of like have to shrug it off, like, oh yeah, okay, no.
It's interesting. I've been blind since birth, but I've been very fortunate to have a very good support system around me, and that is shifting now. And it's okay. I expected that, but I'm finding that sometimes I don't make a very good blind person. and much more easily irritated. Yeah, I guess I'm not adjusting well to my support system shifting. And I will be okay and I will get there. But I think it just kind of reminded me that we all go through, challenging experiences where it's hard to adjust. And no matter how long you've been blind or visually impaired, we're still going to have days where we get embarrassed. We're still going to have days where we're going to feel like we're a quote unquote bad blind person because, we don't have the right technique. So we're trying to find a different way to do something or whatever it may be. But I think at the end of the day, keeping a sense of humor and being patient with yourself, we all can adjust pretty well.
I agree. And I'm glad you said that, right? Because I say this to my clients or ask this to my client, what does it mean to be a good or a bad blind person? Right. And I think we talked about this on the podcast is there are a lot of pressures for us, our community. And I wonder if this is in other communities, but a lot of pressure to act or do certain things to maintain a certain image of independence or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And so, at the end of the day, though, I remind my clients and myself, we all are human, right? So, as I get older, I feel like my patience is dwindling and I'm getting more irritated. And I'm like, okay, I just need to take deep breaths. And so I just think that it's a part of life, but that's something that we do have control over. Okay, when I realize I'm getting irritated, I just need to sit with myself for a bit until I.
Have you ever been told your shirt's inside out?
Oh, yes. But before y'all, I want to interject really quick. So yes, I have the most appropriate way that somebody told me this. So not necessarily inside out, but I had it backwards because my sister gave me a really cute shirt and I had never worn it before. And I thought that what I thought went in the front actually goes in the back. And my supervisor, when I worked for the crisis line, we had a meeting and she asked me to stay after the meeting, which honestly my heart fell to the floor because I thought I was in trouble. But she said, I just want to tell you, your shirt's on backwards. And I was like, oh, thank you for that, right? She didn't call me out in front of people and she waited until it was just us. And she actually told me.
Which I am really grateful to her because a lot of people, out of politeness or fear of, making things uncomfortable for us, don't say these things. And it's like I was shopping the other day with some people that I know, and I picked out a couple of clothing items with their help, and I get home and I learned from someone else that, well, those are really nice and they'll work, but they're see-through. So you got to make sure because that you wear something under them
that is really important to know.
And I'm like, I wouldn't have bought them if I'd known.
Yeah.
Because it's hard texture-wise sometimes to know what is see-through, what is not. And so I just make a habit of making sure I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's important to know, but not everyone thinks to tell someone those things. And I think, it's like with your shirt, not everyone's gonna pull you aside and tell you, even though we really want to know.
Yep, exactly.
Those things are important. But I also learned I need to ask. If I'm not shopping with someone who knows me well or who knows my preferences well, it's on me to ask.
Yeah. Saran wrap is not an outfit.
No. No, it's not. And I just want to add too is Be My Eyes. If you do have the app, that can help too and let you know because when I went to my school reunion, I swear the majority of my wardrobe is stuff that my sister gave me now. But there was another shirt that my sister gave me and I didn't necessarily remember what it looked like because I had never really worn it before. And so I did Be My Eyes and they said it's a see-through shirt with different designs on it. And I was like, okay, yep. Then I need to wear a tank top under it.
And then you have to match.
Then you have to match. Yes.
Yeah. The acceptance of blindness is almost related to aging as you get to the point where you can't do what you used to be able to do, like going up ladders. Some people don't like ladders or stairs or physical work of, maneuvering lumber or something, heavy lifting or slowly you start to rely on help for that.
Yeah.
And that's aging.
Yeah.
So in blindness, it's almost the same thing. There's certain things that you don't want to try without practice, of course, or experiencing. And it's hard for other people to do things too when they get older. So I think it's all related to the challenges that you may meet physically, whether it's due to a disability or aging. I'm starting to see similarities. Like I'm building a shed and stuff, and the friends that I used to call up, they're busy talking about their knee, their hip, their arm, their shoulders, and stuff. They don't do it anymore. I'm a little still active in some of these areas, but they've all faded away. And then I don't have that group of buds that would come over for, make them a burger, give them a beer. They'll work all day for you. Those days are long gone.
I think there's some grief and loss in that. And aging, they say it's your golden years. I don't know who made that phrase up. I don't know if that's 100% accurate. I'm thinking not. But I think there comes some grief and some joy with aging, because there are so many losses, if you want to think about it that way. Our friendship group changes, our health changes, our abilities change. If we're super independent and asking for help is hard, that having to do that is a loss of a sense of independence. I think there's just a whole lot that can make aging really challenging. And so intentionally having things to look forward to and adding things to your life that do balance that out is really helpful. And I think, even if we're newly visually impaired, there's a whole lot of losses that go with that. And so I think just being aware of where you're at in your emotional journey, and really taking a second, like, what are your needs? What's going to help you get through this moment and the next moment? And you can adjust very gracefully, or you could have epic pity parties, lots of ice cream. There's no wrong way to do this. Eventually, we all have to adjust.
Yeah, but after an entire gallon of ice cream, you got to start moving on.
When your waistline starts getting a little... Oh, I snorted. When your waistline gets a little... Yeah, I think that when things become more of a routine, it does get easier, but it doesn't mean that you're going to not still grieve or have those moments like, I wish, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of my grieving has gone into just memories, because I'm not grieving it anymore. It's just, I remember. Yeah. I remember always having friends around, or, going to friends' places, this whole slew of them. But as you get older, and when blindness happened, it seems like a lot of things fell away. So there's that grieving period, and then there's the adjustment, and life goes on.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beth, you put it pretty good there. I like what you said.
So what about all of you listening? This has been a longer podcast episode, and I think we've waxed poetically or not so poetically about adjusting and aging and vision loss. But what helps you adjust, or what is helping you adjust? What's working for you? We always like hearing from all of you, and we do get all of your comments, and whether it's a phone call or an email, we get those. And so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we definitely take in what you say. So please reach out. And until next time, take care.
Stay grounded and take care.
Thanks for listening. And until next time, bye-bye.
Oh yeah, Wellness Wednesday with Beth and Robin. Gonna settle it down. Oh yeah, get your feet planted on the ground.
For more podcasts with the blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to leave us some feedback, give us a call at 612-367-6093. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and until next time, bye-bye.
Wellness and taking care of ourselves. It's all about you and taking care of yourself. Oh yeah.
When we share
what we see through
each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap
between the limited
expectations
and the reality
of blind abilities,
and the realities of blind abilities.
blind abilities.